I like to take the phones out of cases before I shoot. I like to take out the cases before I show them to you, so let me get them nice and naked. Nice little wipe off. Okay, clean enough. Okay, so now it is time for the camera showdown between two of the phones that have been the most requested, the iPhone 11 Pro Max and also the Google Pixel 4, and this is the XL version of that. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first set of pictures are going to be some portrait mode shots using the rear facing cameras. And I actually posted both of these pictures up on my Instagram, and more people like the picture coming from the iPhone 11 Pro instead of the one on the Pixel 4, but let's take a closer look at both of them. Now, one thing I like with the Pixel 4 is that background is super blurry, and when I'm using portrait mode, I like that. I like that subject to be really separated from the background, and on the iPhone 11, you don't really find that too much, but the iPhone did a great job at really representing the color that was happening at the time because the sun was going down. There was a really nice golden glow, and you can see on my subject, it did keep that detail in there, where on the Pixel 4 though, it did a really good job at just balancing everything out. So I do like how they attacked the white balance here. And one thing I did notice is that on the back of his shirt, if you do look at it on the Pixel 4, you can see a lot of different wrinkles and more detail in the shirt, where on the iPhone 11, it's just really more of a shadow on the back of it. You don't really have that extra layer of details. And so I think the Pixel 4 produced a better image, but I can see why some people will like the one coming from the iPhone. All right, so next up we have some more portrait mode pictures, but using the front facing cameras, and you can see a big difference here. So on the Pixel 4, you have really good detail, really good sharpness, and it does look a little bit more processed, and that's kind of a theme of Pixel photos. The shadows and things like that around my face are just a little bit more darker, a little bit more kind of out there, where on the iPhone, it does have a softer look to it, maybe even a more natural look to it. But when you look at the background of the photo on the iPhone 11, that sky and everything is just really blown out, where on the Pixel, it did a really good job at balancing everything in that sky. Then you can see that there was a couple that was sitting behind me, and the Pixel 4 struggled a little bit with the edge detection, but on the iPhone 11 Pro, it did a really good job at handling that. Okay, so what we have next here. Okay, yeah, I like these two pictures. So this is a picture of a Ferris wheel, but I want you to take a look at the ticket sign first. So on the iPhone 11, it did an excellent job with the lights there. Nothing looks blown out like it does on the ticket sign on the Pixel 4 picture. So the iPhone wins in that regard, but I like the rest of the photo with the Ferris wheel and the sky on the Pixel 4. The things are just brightened up just a little bit. I think you can see a little bit more detail, where on the iPhone 11, it just seems a little bit more darker. But I do have to say that one advantage that the iPhone 11 has over the Pixel 4 is that it does have that ultra wide camera. So you can see I can get a lot more in this shot with the iPhone 11 than I can with the Pixel 4. And even at this point, I wasn't in line at the ticket stand, so I couldn't even step back if I wanted to. So this is kind of one of those things where you see where that ultra wide does come in handy, and the iPhone 11 of course has it. Okay, so moving on, what do we have? All right, so these photos are not framed the best, so sorry about that, but you can see a really big difference in color here, where on the iPhone it has a little bit more atmosphere, has a little bit more feeling in the photo because of that glow, but on the Pixel 4, it's a sharp, clear image all the way through, especially when you look at the glass on the windows there. So you can see more detail in the glass on the Pixel 4, but I kind of like how it looks on the iPhone 11. Yeah, you can't see a lot of detail there, but I do like that sun coming in and just that type of feeling that it gives to the photo. So two totally different photos coming from both of these phones. Now let's pause for a second, because earlier I showed you the advantage that the iPhone 11 Pro has because of that ultra wide camera. Well, the Pixel 4 has an advantage when it comes to zooming in, because Google has put their new super res zoom inside of here. So that means when you are zooming in 2 times with the optical zoom, or even further than that, your picture should look a lot better than the competition. So let's take a look at that. So this first set of photos is just going to be using the regular wide angle camera, and then I'm gonna zoom in with the telephoto cameras on both of these phones, and you can see that I think the Pixel 4 has a little bit more detail there. It's not really that easy to see, but as we zoom in all the way, I'm talking about just pinching and zooming all the way with both of these phones, you can see that the Pixel 4 does retain that detail a lot better than the iPhone 11. Like, I would actually still use that photo from the Pixel 4 versus the one from the iPhone 11. So when it comes to zooming in, yes, I just said that, the Pixel 4 takes the cake on that. Okay, oh boy. Okay, this one shocked me a lot when I took this, because the Pixel 4 sucked at this particular photo. So the iPhone 11 Pro showcased exactly what I was looking at that time. I actually had an orange light right behind this little pumpkin thing here, and it had a really nice bright orange glow to it. And in this case, you can see that the Pixel 4 just tried to do a little too much this time. It tried to balance it out. It tried to kind of like fine-tune that image where it just really just needed to let the picture speak for itself and just take the photo as is. So the iPhone definitely killed it in this, and this actually shocked me a little bit because I can see where the Pixel 4 sometimes it's just not going to be able to get you a decent image because of that processing that it's trying to do. Oh, okay, all right, I was ready for this one. So in these two photos, I'm using the night modes on these phones. Now on the Pixel 4 though, I was using the astrophotography mode. So this is gonna be made to try to capture that night sky with the stars. And on the iPhone 11, you don't have a particular mode like that, but you do have where the night mode, you can actually set the timer for the maximum allotted time. And I think this photo, I set it for 9 seconds and it was able to capture this photo, where on the Pixel 4, the astrophotography mode had 2 minutes to be able to take the photo. And you should also know that the astrophotography mode only works when you have the phone completely still, like on a tripod, like I had both of these phones for these shots. Now, before I move on, let me show you what it looked like at the time I took both of these photos. You can see it was almost pitch black dark. So they both did an excellent job at capturing something that was in almost complete darkness. But let's go ahead and look at these photos a little bit closer. So first, let's start with the skies. So on the iPhone 11 Pro, the sky is black, where on the Pixel 4, it trends to go more bluish. And then also to the iPhone 11, I think did a better job at really highlighting those stars. They seem a little bit brighter, and the Pixel 4 doesn't really do that well. But what the Pixel 4 does well is that it has a really uniform looking sky from the top to the bottom. So at the top it's dark and it kind of slowly fades into light, where on the iPhone 11 it looks a little bit patchy. You have little patches of light everywhere. And one thing to notice at the bottom of the photo, when we start to look at some of the detail there, you see that on the Pixel 4, I mean, you can see the glass, you can see all those lights pretty clearly, where on the iPhone things look a little bit blurry, especially when you look at the grass. I mean, the grass is really a big telling factor at which one is producing more details and more sharpness in the photos, and you can see that the Pixel 4 did a better job. So I'm impressed that the iPhone 11 was able to do this in just 9 seconds, but I have to give the nod over here to the Pixel 4 for just having a better looking image at this really dark time at night. All right, so next up, these two photos are taken handheld. So I don't have the Pixel 4 on the tripod, and I'm not using the astrophotography mode. Both of these photos are just using the straight up night modes on both of these phones, and you can see the iPhone wins. And so you can tell this just by looking at the sky, because the Pixel 4 skies is just pixelated. You can't really see any stars. You can't really see any detail there, where on the iPhone 11, it did a great job. So even though it doesn't have an astrophotography mode, it still does a great job at capturing those stars and things like that in the sky. And then as you continue down the photo, the iPhone just has that detail there, that sharpness there in the photo that just puts it over top over the Pixel 4. All right, so now it's video time. So I'm showing you some video running at 4K at 30 frames per second from both of these phones. And the Pixel 4 does a good job though. It does a better job than most other smartphones besides like the Galaxy Note 10 when it comes to video, comparing it to the iPhone 11, but it just looks a little bit ashy compared to the video coming from the iPhone 11 Pro. And yeah, so I don't know what Apple is doing to really kind of separate itself from all the other smartphones out there, but in this video, just take a look at the sky as these lights start to go past it. You can see that on the Pixel 4 it just gets really grainy there, when the iPhone just maintains that really nice deep dark level. And I'm gonna show you that again, so just pay attention to the sky here coming up. Yeah, you see that detail being maintained in the iPhone, and you just lose that on the Pixel 4. Now this next couple of videos here are going to be something that really showcases the stabilization that you get in the cameras on these phones, and you can see that the Pixel 4 does a good job, and I actually can't compare its stabilization to the iPhones. I think it's pretty close to equal, if not just being straight up equal. And also as you look through to the back there on the trees, the Pixel 4 has a really good nice quality there, where the iPhone 11, I mean, it starts to get better and better as I get closer to it, but at Pixel 4 I like just being able to see all of that detail as I'm walking through. But as we get out there, I kind of like the look of the iPhone 11 Pros a little bit better. The video looks a little bit more uniform, and here's another example of the video stabilization, how both of them do a great job, and I really can't tell a difference between the two, to be honest with you. So I have to say that the video stabilization, even though usually the iPhone is really good at that, the Pixel 4 is right there neck and neck with it. Now looking at the front-facing cameras on the Pixel 4, you can only record up to 1080p at 30 frames per second, which is going to be a noticeable gap with the front-facing camera on the iPhone 11 Pro that can still record at 4K up to 16 frames per second. So the video stabilization is still in the same boat. It's still pretty good on both the phones, but that difference in quality is definitely noticeable. Now, as I like to do in all of my camera comparisons, I like to take a look at the camera software that comes on these phones too, because that is important. So I like the fact on the iPhone, when you're taking things like portrait mode shots, you have all those different lighting sets that you can do. You have the contour light and stage lighting and stuff like that. That really does add a different feel and look to your photos, where on the Pixel it just kind of has portrait mode and that's it. But I do like on the Pixel you have some of these fun modes like the photosphere mode, and also the one I think it's playground, where you can have like Childish Gambino dancing on your desk and stuff like that. That's cool and fun to play around with. But one of the more useful things is Google Lens, which allows you to look at subjects or objects and be able to gather information off of the web just by tapping on them. So if I'm trying to buy something or look for a better price online, I can use this camera just built into the software to be able to find that information that I'm looking for. And something else new with this Pixel 4 is that it does have this Live HDR Plus, which allows you to see exactly how the photo is going to turn out before you hit that shutter button. So you can see here on the Pixel 4, you can see just all the detail there, and as I snap the photo and I take a look at it, it looks pretty much similar besides the background blur that was added because I'm taking this in portrait mode. Whereas on the iPhone 11, you see the background is really kind of blown out, so I really can't tell whether or not the photo is going to be a good one until I snap the photo and then I go and take a look at it, and it does look good, but you just don't kind of know that beforehand, which I think is incredibly useful with this Live HDR Plus on the Pixel 4. Then also on the Pixel 4, it does have dual exposure controls, so it has two little sliders there that you can use to adjust the photo to really add a dynamic look to a photo that you're trying to take. So that added control does allow this camera app to give you a little bit more control than what you can do with the one on the iPhone. Okay, so what's the final verdict on these two phones? Well, I still have to say that the iPhone 11 Pro is going to be better for videos and photos. And in the video department, I didn't even mention that it can record at 4K 60 frames on the rear and the front facing cameras, and the Pixel 4 doesn't have any of that. And if you're just looking for something that can just take great photos and great portrait modes and selfies and things like that, the Pixel 4 may be your cup of tea. So anyway, these are just my thoughts. What do you think about these two phones? Leave your comment down below and let me know which phone that you personally would want to go with. And also too, be sure to subscribe to me here on YouTube, hit that notification bell, and follow me on all my different social media networks. Those links are down below. I'm posting a lot of pictures from these two phones, so make sure you check me out, especially on Instagram. But anyway, thanks for watching this video, guys, and I will catch you later. Peace.